The way a product is packaged on the shelf is the only way that we as consumers know what we're buying. But more than ever, the things on these labels are misleading us into thinking that they're better for us, better for our wallets, or for the planet than they actually are. We all just want to buy stuff without feeling bad about it, but today it is harder than it has ever been. Today's episode is brought to you by Megacorp blank insert name here because we don't get sponsors. We have to make them up as a joke at the beginning of these videos. So if you want to support what we do in a real meaningful way to keep these videos ad-free for y'all, consider supporting us on Patreon. We love you. Today we are going to be talking about something that I bring up unprompted at dinner parties when I need things to get awkward real fast. The corporate lies and manipulation that we all subconsciously fall for every time that we are faced with what should be a very simple purchase decision when we go into the grocery store. Look, I am a really fun guy to be around, and this channel is just kind of like my outlet for all that fun. So if you want to hear me rant about this kind of thing, subscribe, because I am just getting started. So we decided to make this video after Lou showed me a TikTok where this guy reveals that these two toilet paper products are made by the same company despite being marketed very differently. One as sustainable and costing significantly more. But while this video might have shocked some, I have the pessimism and the environmental science background to know that this kind of thing is literally everywhere. So today we are going to be diving into the specific and sometimes brilliant ways that corporations trick you into buying stuff you think is good for the planet, otherwise known as greenwashing. The term greenwashing was originally coined back when an environmentalist, Jay Westerveld, used it in a 1986 essay. He was talking about the hotel industry because it was falsely promoting the reuse of towels to save the environment, when in fact it was a cost-saving measure. Brilliant marketing, honestly. But what I find amazing about this story is that it shows that companies have been using the environment as a way to sell their products since before the 80s.
For 2 hours, fashionable Fifth Avenue was off limits to automobiles. Thousands of persons jammed into Union Square to attend an Earth Day rally.
The first ever Earth Day happened in 1970, and in 1971, Greenpeace was founded. And initially, the environmentalist movement had some really big wins. It was in this era when McDonald's, for example, faced pressure to change its polystyrene clamshells, and in 1990 it finally moved to paper-based packaging. But since then, we have seen a lot more talk and a lot less action. Terms like eco-friendly, biodegradable, sustainable, earth-friendly are all words that invoke a certain warm feeling in your mind but actually mean nothing. For example, the FTC hasn't even come up with a clear definition for the terms sustainable, natural, or organic. But it's not the words that are the problem. It's the actions or efforts, or lack thereof, that those words imply. Companies may have sustainability goals or achievements, and promoting it isn't necessarily greenwashing, but there is no specific requirement that needs to be met for a company to start using those kinds of terminologies on their branding. The US Federal Trade Commission has green guides to help companies be honest about their eco-friendly claims on their products and packaging, but none of these rules are legally binding, and there's no real authority that follows up on the things that Kruger is saying about their toilet paper. They could just be recycling cardboard and then calling themselves a sustainably focused company for all we know. Now, typically in this circumstance, we recommend B corporations as companies who have done more and have had their efforts vetted by a third party. But even that certification is questionable in some circumstances. We've made a whole other video about that if you want to get more into that one. The link will be down in the description. But see, a big part of the problem here is that most people just don't know what any of these words mean. A recent study found that people are confused by recycling labels and struggle to work out what and where anything goes. But 85% remained enthusiastic about buying compostable plastics. Compostable plastics is a whole other subject that we're going to get into in a minute here, but a lot of plastic-free alternatives are labeled as compostable or biodegradable, but there is a huge distinction between those things. Biodegradable products technically can break down with the help of bacteria and microbes in the natural environment, but there's no time limit here. Something could break down in 1 week or in 400 years and still be considered biodegradable. A perfect example of this is the controversy back in 2019 when McDonald's introduced paper straws that turned out to be non-recyclable. Now, we have done a whole video on the subject of paper straws too, and you should also check that out. And listen, like I said, we are out here making in-laws uncomfortable, so you should subscribe if you really want to get uninvited to those dinner parties, because we got lots of spicy content to keep things interesting between you and your mother-in-law. The truth is that over the years, the environmental movement has shifted from an ideological perspective that was based in fact.
This administration is being utterly hypocritical in its attempts to deal with environmental pollution, obviously.
To a marketing tool that has been exploited by big corporations to make more money.
The world needs ways to reduce carbon emissions.
Especially for heavy industry. So who are we?
Believe it or not, ExxonMobil.
So if you just take a little gander on the internet for sustainability or eco-friendly products, you might notice a color theme. Over the years, we have learned what a sustainable product looks like at a glance. Leaves, trees, water droplets, mountains, usually with the word green thrown in there just to really drive the point home. And the sad part about this is that it wouldn't be so prevalent if it didn't work. This kind of color matching and wordplay is central to any company's eco-friendly rebrand, and it's one of the most maddening parts about this whole phenomenon. You've got brands creating the sustainable and non-sustainable version of the same product right beside each other, and the choice between them has become less about what is best, but about how much money you have and what kind of consumer you want to be perceived as. And here's the thing, in some cases, the sustainable or green alternative being presented is actually a great thing for the environment. When McDonald's made the switch from styrofoam to paper containers back in the 90s, that made a tangible difference because they're still using those containers to this day. Some sustainable shifts are based on real laws that come into effect or technology that has made sustainability also more financially viable. But since then, we have seen that lots of innovations or new sustainable moves are being made by companies just for the sake of appearances. Probably one of the most obvious and notorious examples of this is with plastic water bottles. Believe it or not, we have a whole other video about bottled water, which single-handedly drove a wedge between my uncle and I. But what you need to know is that both Coca-Cola and Nestle have had, frankly, incredible histories of keeping us in the dark with their marketing sleight of hand. They know that if they can just promise a 100% recyclable plastic bottle, that we'll forget for a moment that plastic basically never gets recycled nowadays. That if they make their bottles eco-shaped, we'll ignore that it's still made of plastic. Or that their new prototype bottle made from 100% plant-based plastic isn't just still gonna end up in the landfill afterwards. The effort of all of these innovations, every new bioplastic or green initiative, is not to save the environment or to make their product better, but to continually distract us from the fact that the only way that they could be truly sustainable would be by making products that aren't disposable in the first place. But here's the thing, disposability is baked into our culture today, and all of our solutions as a result have to operate within that framework. Instead of plastic toothbrushes, we have bamboo toothbrushes packaged in paper and made with organic materials. What are we gonna do? Not brush our teeth? And in many ways, this is better, for sure. Alternatives to plastic are important because we just have way too much plastic in our world as it is. But bamboo, while being natural and a renewable resource, is not always as sustainable as you might think. And how many people who buy the toothbrush are going through all of the effort to pull out the bristles before they throw it into the compost? I mean, there's just as likely of a chance that that same toothbrush ends up in the landfill. And listen, I'm not saying that this is our fault, because there is a lot of people out there who are willing to make that extra effort, but it's hard to fight the good fight when the system is rigged against us. There was a very interesting lawsuit that came out against Colgate for their breakthrough recyclable plastic toothpaste tube that the company said could be recycled alongside other containers, just like detergent jugs. The package featured the recycling symbol and a bold, big lettered "Recycle Me," which led consumers to believe that the tube would be widely accepted at recycling facilities. But the truth was that few facilities accepted the tubes, with only a minuscule number of consumers in California and across the US being able to recycle them. And this is the problem. No matter what color the package is or what the words on the side of it might promise you, nothing on the grocery store shelf is being returned back to nature in perfect harmony. I know, believe me, I am just like you. I just want to live my life and not have to think about every single piece of garbage that I've ever made as some sort of tick against humanity in the ever-looming climate apocalypse. But at the same time, it is important to be aware of what's really going on when you throw something into that blue bin. And look, I know that we've told you to watch like 8 of our videos in this one video, but this one is actually a recommendation for a different channel. If you haven't watched Climate Town's video all about recycling, then you should definitely get into that, but let me just catch you up for the sake of this video. Basically, the US Federal Trade Commission's Green Guide states that a product can be marked as recyclable, even if only 60% of the consumers in that country have access to a facility that can recycle them. Then there is that recycling icon that we all seem to think means something that it doesn't, because that's actually a resin code, and it does not mean that something is recyclable. Rather, it refers to the kind of plastic that it is. The truth is, because people want it to work, they want there to be an easy win-win solution. But the reality is that only 11% of plastic is ever recycled, and most compostable packaging is never actually composted. So the real way to avoid getting sucked into the promises of these companies is to be a minimalist. Become a minimalist. Come on. Matt Diavelli is gonna start posting again. We're all gonna whitewash our walls. We're gonna buy those weird, uncomfortable looking chairs. Come on, let's do it. You and me, we can do it together. Look, I know that we have critiqued the minimalist movement and the zero waste movement in the past on this channel, but the fundamentals of those ideas hold a lot more value than the promises that you're going to see on those labels on shelves today. If you buy products that are designed to last a long time, or you look for staples in bulk or in your own container, you are avoiding the decision paralysis that happens in the grocery stores when we're looking for a sustainable option. And honestly, sure, it's worth it to take a few extra minutes to really think about what sustainable packaging is, but arguably more importantly, it's worth it to analyze how likely you are to take the steps to actually recycle it or dispose of it properly in the first place, or even if that option is available to you. We can't shop our way out of this shitstorm, but we can at least start thinking about it. And honestly, if you're watching this video, you're probably a big step ahead of most people in that regard. So thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing, for liking this video. If you want to see more content, you know what to do, and we'll see you every week for another upload.